This is gonna be one of those days.
Everything in a movie has a purpose. Every scene, every action, every cut. There is a reason for it being there. With that in mind, let's begin.
Brave is about Merida and her mom learning to sacrifice their values and ideas for one another to help grow a stronger, more meaningful relationship by the end of the movie. We see at the beginning of the film, the two of them are fighting and bickering over what they believe in, and then by the end of the film, they're sewing together and riding off into the sunset. But how we get there is a very long and confusing and tapestry-filled journey. Merida and her mom's relationship at the beginning of the film is believable. The scene that sets up the movie emotionally is when Eleanor is talking to Fergus as if she's talking to Merida, and Merida is talking to her horse as if she was talking to her mom. It sets up that they love each other, but they have conflicting values that they wish the other person would understand if they would listen. Ironically, it's this idea of listening that's never fulfilled throughout the rest of the film. Instead, the movie tries to build a relationship off a number of conflicts, but they all wind up being weak and silly. Therefore, at the end of the film, when we're shown that they have a deep and meaningful relationship, we don't believe that, because it's been built off of these shallow and gag-riddled conflicts.
Are you willing to pay the price your freedom will cost?
This is the main conflict for Merida throughout the film. What is she actually risking by holding onto her freedom? So we have these three clans, and they're all fighting for Merida's hand in marriage because their tradition is strong and they say that it must be. Problem is, Merida also has a strong desire to hold on to her freedom. Merida's willingness to forego tradition threatens to throw these four clans into war and tear the bonds that they've built between each other. The point of this is to show strong forces outside of Merida's control that are forcing her to conform and how she has to fight against them. Where is any of that in the actual film? You ready? Okay. Not only is the threat of war really subtly conveyed throughout the film, but the three clans are portrayed as a joke. They come into the story as a gag and are treated as such through the remainder of the film. There are specific dialogue choices throughout the film that are supposed to let us know that war is a possibility if Merida doesn't conform to marriage. The first one being when Merida is talking to her horse and says, "We'll be expecting your declarations of war in the morning." But she's making a joke out of it right there. Like, does she even believe that it's a real threat? The next is after the archery scene, when Merida's mom is yelling at her, telling her that it'll be fire and sword if this doesn't get set right. But I didn't catch that until my fourth viewing of it when I had subtitles on. And even then, it's still really cryptic. So even if you can catch these points and figure out that war is potentially brewing, do you even believe that? The final scene with the four tribes fighting is supposed to be the climax of tension between them, that we might actually see these four clans tear each other apart and kill one another over Merida. But I don't believe that. We've seen them fighting throughout the rest of the film, and it's always been displayed as a gag, so it feels like that now.
So we're never convinced of any real threat of this war. Therefore, Merida's price isn't convincing. What's the problem? Why can't she be free? What's going to happen if she's free? We're going to throw some more bananas on the ground and everybody's just going to slip? Like, oh no. So we're on Merida's side so much. We're like, what is she actually causing by her freedom? So, at the end of the movie, when she sacrifices her freedom because she finally sees her mom's point of view, she accepts her responsibility as the princess to sacrifice her freedom for the kingdom to prevent the threat of war. It's shallow because we didn't believe in the war in the first place. The Legend of the Fallen Kingdom, even from when it's initially introduced, is silly and random. Its whole point in the story is to be a parallel example of selfishness to Merida. To show Merida that selfishness can lead to destruction, to eventually cause a realization in her to put aside her pride and do what's best for the kingdom. We first hear this legend when Merida first finds out that the clans are coming and she's being forced into marriage. She then storms up to her room, and then her mom follows her and she's like, "Suitors! Marriage!" To which her mother just randomly tells her this legend. In our review of Wreck-It Ralph, we talk about successful examples of exposition. This here is a really bad way to tell the audience something.
They play it off as a lesson, which could work. But the problem is that the legend and Merida's situation only vaguely relate to one another if you squint your eyes enough. In the legend, Buff Pants McMurderspree wants to rule the entire kingdom for himself. Merida wants her rights as an individual, which will subsequently cause a goofy war. Anybody else see how Merida can learn from this legend? Huh? Hey, you! Hey, put that down. The legend legend deals more with themes of greed, and Merida's situation is more about breaking tradition. Sure, one can suck selfishness out of both of these stories, but the intentions of the oldest prince and Merida are so vastly different that the legend comes off irrelevant to her situation. And if Merida's not even interested in it at this point, then we're the only ones left to listen. It feels like the movie's specifically trying to tell the audience something, thus it feels flat and exposition-y.
But the main problem with the legend comes when it supposedly makes Merida realize her selfishness. As stated, the legend's themes have no relevance to Merida's values. So when she uses the legend as a model to change, it's not convincing and doesn't carry any weight. So not only are we not convinced that she needs to give up her freedom based on the silly threat of war, when she actually does, we don't know why, because the reason she changes is irrelevant. Furthermore, Merida and her mother's relationship is underdeveloped to the point where we don't even care about it emotionally.
Eleanor is transformed into a bear for one specific reason. She needs to understand what freedom means to Merida. She has to understand entirely why Merida has this desire to be free. That way, Eleanor can sacrifice her traditional values at the climax of the film to respect Merida's desire to be free. Great! Too bad it all gets summed up in one fishing montage. This is the only moment that Merida and Eleanor share when she's a bear. Therefore, we have to assume that it's this moment, it's this fishing montage. This is where Eleanor comes to understand freedom and Merida and why she wants her freedom. She knows that. She just knows. You know, fishing. It's how she figures it out. Why is this the only scene? Yes, these two characters are within the same general space as one another throughout the rest of the film. But where are those moments of them just talking to each other, getting to know one another? Okay, so let me level with you guys here for a minute. I know it's a visual medium. Adam knows it's a visual medium. The whole beginning of the movie sets up that they need to listen to one another, that they need to explain their point of views, that they need to come to understand freedom and tradition. But Eleanor can't speak because she's a bear. Why a bear? And why can't she talk? The whole movie is about how the two of them need to just listen to one another. There is one particular scene where Merida has a flashback and remembers a childhood memory of a more positive relationship that she had with her mother. But she doesn't say anything. Why didn't Merida take the time to sit there and be like, hey mom, do you remember when we actually liked one another? And then they could have remembered those times that they had, and then we could have actually seen some change happening in the relationship. Them trying to form an understanding. It needed some high dad soup. Now that's a movie that did it well. Goofy movie. The scene that made me care about the movie is right here. You see it, you feel it, you know it. Both of the characters are just so vulnerable and open, and they're just talking to each other, and it's real and it's messy. But it's so good because Goofy just wants that loving relationship that he used to have with his son. And Max responds, and it's clear that both of these characters want a loving relationship with one another, and we feel it, and it's engaging, and we want that relationship to work for both of the characters. But we don't get that from Brave. We don't get that from either Merida or Eleanor throughout the whole story. So because we don't have any moments where either of them are talking out their point of view and trying to make the other one understand, when Eleanor decides to sacrifice her tradition for Merida's freedom, it comes off from the top, Adam. Is it weak? Shallow? Lame?
It's just convenient, not lame. The story fails to deliver a satisfying payoff when the movie comes to an end. The sacrifices of the characters are tied to empty and shallow conflicts. So the sacrifice comes off unrewarding, and as a result leaves us as the audience unsatisfied with the overall story.
What did you guys think?
Do you like Brave? Do you not like Brave?
Let us know why in the comments. And as a final note, we'd like to ask you guys, what's so bad about being a bear? You've got them bare necessities, them simple bare necessities. Don't worry about your problems and your strife.
Man, we've got them bare necessities, them simple bare necessities.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Leave us a like, maybe subscribe. We got MySpace now. You can follow us on the Twitters too. Feel free to talk to us. Oh, we're lonely.